Hello, my name is Alison St. Germain, and I am the Iowa State University Student Health and Wellness Registered Dietitian. And today I'm going to be talking to you about nourishing your body and strategies for you to help add things to what you're already eating that can help reduce your cholesterol or reduce your triglycerides if you are struggling with that. So first of all, I just wanted to kind of show you other things that I do on campus in case you want to come visit. I do one-on-one counseling, so after you've watched this video, if you have more specific questions regarding your cholesterol or anything you've seen in this presentation, you can make an appointment with me, and I'll let you know at the end how to do that. And so some of my specialties are eating disorders and disordered eating, and then I do medical nutrition therapy on anything, basically, any type of disease that has a nutrition component to it, like cholesterol, high cholesterol. And then I also do presentations, lectures, small group classes, that sort of thing as well. I also have an intern. She is a dietetic student, so you'll sometimes hear me refer to her as Joyful Eating intern or dietetic intern. And she works specifically with helping you all on quick, easy meals you can make. If you're on a budget, she talks about that too. Quick, easy, nourishing, and gives you some tips. She's a college student herself, short on time, so a great resource. We hold virtual small groups on this as well. And when I say we, I mean she does. And so you can get kind of the information piece of it, some skill building things, and then after that, you can make a follow-up one-on-one appointment with her. What she's working on this summer is sports and exercise nutrition, so that's coming soon. So what we're going to cover in this short video is we're going to look at some myths and truths about cholesterol and triglycerides. We will watch a video together to understand what is happening inside your body regarding cholesterol and also regarding triglycerides, because they're different. They're similar but different. And then we can explore some changes you might want to try with nutrition and movement and lifestyle. And then I'll have you take a few minutes just to set at least one intention or change that you want to work on. And then I will have more resources too available for you for more learning. So now we're going to do a little quick quiz you can assess your own knowledge here by what you already know and what you need to learn more about. So thinking of this as like thumbs down is false and thumbs up is true. So your body produces cholesterol. Is that true or false? The answer is true. So thumbs up. Your body produces cholesterol. It's essential. We always hear about the bad things about cholesterol, but cholesterol is essential to our life. The problem with anything is if we have too much or too little, because the body is always trying to keep it in homeostasis. So if you eat something with cholesterol, your body then just produces less. So it's not technically the cholesterol you're eating, it is the saturated fat instead. And so we'll talk about that here later. Okay, next question. HDL, so the high-density lipoprotein, is the bad cholesterol. True or false? I'll let you think for a second. Okay, that is false. Thumbs down. HDL is actually the good cholesterol. You want more of that in your body because it goes in, grabs on to the LDL, which is the bad one, and takes it out of your bloodstream. Next question. Tobacco and stress can increase your LDL, so that's the low density, and decrease the high density cholesterol and put you at higher risk for stroke or disease. Is that true or false? The answer is true. Yes, it can. My weight and eating habits have caused my high cholesterol or triglycerides. Thumbs up for true, thumbs down for false. That is a thumbs down. It's false because that is like a really simplified way of thinking of things because there are genetics involved here. You could eat, quote unquote, perfectly, be very active, and still have high cholesterol or triglycerides. However, there are some things we can try diet-wise and then also lifestyle-wise that can actually help manage it though. True or false? I cannot eat animal products anymore if my cholesterol is high. The answer is false. Thumbs down. You can still eat animal products, but we can also talk about other things you can add in to see if that's going to make a difference with your cholesterol. Small changes can make a big difference in your lab values, even if your weight remains the same. True or false? And the answer is true, and we'll talk about those changes coming up here. So the first thing I want to do is define some terms, because there's a lot of terms that get thrown around. You hear hyperlipidemia, cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglycerides, saturated fats, and unsaturated. So we're going to define all of those first. So hyperlipidemia is just kind of a fancy scientific term that's an umbrella over all of this. It's elevated lipids, basically, and your lipids are cholesterol or triglycerides. So if you hear hyperlipidemia, remember it's just a kind of an umbrella term for your lipids. And then high levels of these in your bloodstream can then stick to your arteries. You may have heard the term hardening of the arteries, because if it keeps sticking to them, it gets built up and then also narrows the passageway of blood, which can put you at increased risk of a heart attack or a stroke. So then the term cholesterol. So as we already talked about, cholesterol is essential, and it's waxy type of a fat or a lipid, and it's found in your body, but it's also found in animal products. And so if you eat animal products, you are consuming cholesterol as well. And that's where it can get to be too much total that's being consumed. But if you are eating more cholesterol, remember your body makes less. But the saturated fat, which is also found in the animal products, seems to be the problem child, if you will. And so the function of cholesterol then, we never hear about the function of it, but it's to build cells. It's to make vitamins and minerals and hormones. So it has a very important job. We just don't hear about it. We only hear about the bad things about it. And we already talked about this in the quiz. 2 types of cholesterol or hyperlipids are the high density, which is the good, and low density, which is the bad. And if you can just remember it, the H for high, you want that higher. L for low, you want that lower. And what I'm going to do then through this presentation is help you figure out, okay, how can I increase these HDLs and how can I lower the LDLs? So here I am going to play this little video for you on what is cholesterol. It's going to go over some of the things that I already talked about, but you'll be able to have the visual with it and be able to understand it more.
Cholesterol is essential for good health. This waxy, fat-like substance is produced naturally, mainly in your liver, but it also comes from the food you eat, like eggs, fatty meats, and cheese. Cholesterol is a key component for critical functions. Your skin uses cholesterol to convert sunlight into vitamin D. Some glands need it to make hormones such as estrogen, testosterone, and cortisol. Cholesterol helps your liver create fat-dissolving bile acids, which help with digestion. And it's a crucial building block in every cell membrane. Cholesterol doesn't dissolve in blood, so it needs special proteins to help move it through the bloodstream. These lipoproteins wrap themselves around cholesterol molecules and deliver them to where they're needed most. There are 2 main types: high-density lipoproteins called HDL and low-density lipoproteins called LDL. Most of the body's cholesterol is made up of LDL, also known as the bad cholesterol. When too much of it builds up in your bloodstream, it sticks to artery walls and helps form plaque, which can lead to heart attacks or strokes. HDL is considered the good kind because it acts like a scavenger, absorbing excess cholesterol in your blood and taking it back to your liver, where it's flushed from your body. It's important to monitor your cholesterol levels regularly so you can help keep your HDL high and your LDL low.
So now if you have your cholesterol levels close by, or you can pull them up on my chart, do that so you can compare to what the standards are. So the first column is the desirable. So you want your total cholesterol less than 200. And total cholesterol is comprised of many things. It looks at triglycerides, your LDL, your HDL, and some other things as well to get to your total. So if your HDLs are really high, because HDL is the good one, it might boost your total high. So you have to look at the ratio of that too. It might not it might be almost like a false high if your HDLs are, higher. So keep that in mind, and the doctor or I can help you look at that too. And then you want your LDLs lower than 100 milligrams per deciliter. And then your HDLs you want higher than 40. 60 is above, normal, but 60 is where kind of like the protective factor comes in. So trying to get them higher is ideal. Then you have the borderline here and then the high values here. And at some point, your doctor will talk with you about medication if they get too high and you haven't had good success with lifestyle changes and nutrition helping bring those down. So now jumping to triglycerides, this is also a lipid or a type of fat that circulates in the blood. It's different in that it's the function is different for one. And it's also stored in fat cells. So when excess calories are consumed, then it's stored in the fat to be used later for energy or for whatever it's needed for. Sometimes we don't really want to use it for energy. We want to use it for these other things, but it can be used for energy too. So looking at your lab values again, here are your normals, and then borderline high, and then very high. And we'll talk about interventions here in a bit. But first, I want you to watch this short little video on triglycerides in your body.
You or someone you know may have been diagnosed with high triglycerides. This video will show you what they are and how their levels are measured. High triglycerides can have harmful effects on your body. Triglycerides are a type of fat or lipid found in your blood. Your body uses triglycerides for energy. One place triglycerides come from is your liver. Another is from the food you eat. Foods that may raise your triglycerides include fatty foods such as hot dogs and tropical oils, refined carbohydrates such as French fries, foods high in simple sugars such as donuts, and alcohol. So, how do triglycerides get to the cells that need them? Triglycerides in food are digested and eventually reach your liver. In the liver, both the triglycerides from your food and those made in your liver are packaged together with proteins. Each resulting molecule is called a lipoprotein. The lipoproteins travel throughout the body in your bloodstream. They deliver triglycerides to your cells, which use them for energy. Or if you have more than you need, fat cells store the triglycerides as body fat. If you are 20 years of age or older, the National Institutes of Health recommends you have a blood test every 5 years. The test is called a fasting lipoprotein profile. During this test, a blood sample will be taken from your arm after you have not eaten for 9 to 12 hours. This blood test can reveal whether your triglycerides fall into a healthy range. For most people, fasting triglycerides should be less than 150 milligrams per deciliter. 500 or higher puts you into the very high range. This means there is too much fat in your blood. Very high triglycerides can increase your risk of pancreatitis and other cardiovascular events like heart disease. Ask your doctor what your triglyceride level should be. In many cases, lifestyle changes can help maintain healthy triglyceride levels. These changes include eating a diet low in sweets, refined carbohydrates, and alcohol, getting regular exercise, managing your weight, and not smoking. Medications can also help treat impaired triglyceride levels. If your doctor prescribed medication to treat high triglycerides, it is important to take it as directed and report any side effects you may have.
Okay, so now looking at the differences between saturated fat and unsaturated. The easiest way to think of it is the saturated fat is found in animal products primarily. There's a couple exceptions. And then the unsaturated is found in fatty fish, nuts, seeds, these oils, specifically olive, avocado, vegetable, rich in omega-3 fatty acids. And then also, this doesn't affect your LDL cholesterol, which is good because the saturated fats do. And so if you look down this list, because it's not just the meat that can be increasing your cholesterol. It could be if you consume a lot of butter or ghee or coconut and palm oil. Even though they're an oil, they have saturated fat, a lot more in it than some of these oils over here. And then if you are a social media person, you've probably been scared by seed oils, which are these over on the unsaturated side. Well, that's a whole nother presentation, but there is not sufficient research to be scared of seed oils. They still are the healthier version, so just kind of ignore some of that, because what happens in social media is they grab on to one study. The one study could be limited in many areas, and it's just highly focusing on one thing. So still, the recommendation is to consume olive oil, avocado, vegetable oils. Okay, so looking at foods that will be higher in saturated fat then are your fattier cuts of meat and sausages and bacon, salamis, high-fat cheeses, pastries. I'm not going to read through the whole list here, but kind of just lead you down through the cream, ice cream, coconut milk, that sort of thing. So the goal here is to increase the unsaturated fats, because we do need fat, and to look here, like maybe you're like, I like cheese, but I could, decrease that because I really like to eat chicken or beef or something. So you just have to kind of pick and choose where you can decrease to see if it makes any changes. So oftentimes our focus becomes so narrow because all we hear about is, I have to eat a certain way. But there's more that affects your cholesterol than just food. Stress highly influences your cholesterol levels, and sleep. And a lot of students don't get enough sleep because they're busy, they're studying, and that increases stress levels, that increases then also your cholesterol levels. And physical activity, if you are more sedentary, that also could be a factor. And then alcohol and any type of substance like nicotine, tobacco, that sort of thing, can also adversely affect your cholesterol, triglyceride levels. We do have support on campus for abstaining from substances. We also have therapists too. That's free to students. And so if you have more questions on that, you definitely can contact me and I can lead you to those sources too. Okay, so some tips on gentle nutrition would be, as we already talked, decreasing foods with saturated fat, and that would be your animal products. And so you could consider a meatless Monday. It doesn't have to be Monday. It could be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But, meatless Monday just has that cool alliteration piece. Sometimes people like to have themes like Taco Tuesdays, Meatless Monday. Adding in plant-based proteins. I have a whole slide on how to increase plant proteins coming up here. And then increasing your soluble fiber. Just increasing fiber in general is helpful, but the soluble fiber really can help decrease your cholesterol in your bloodstream. And so what I've done is I listed out some main soluble fiber sources here: oats, barley, wheat bran, legumes, and sometimes people call these pulses, or beans. Any of like black beans, chickpeas, pinto beans, that sort of thing. Lentils are great fiber sources. They're also high in iron. They're high in protein. And so they're just a good, actually cheap source of a lot of things. So highly recommend those. Also, you can get soluble fiber through nuts, flaxseed, and chia. And so flaxseed and chia are your plant versions then of the omega-3 fatty acids. because you also can find omega-3 fatty acids in fish and that sort of thing. And then apples, pears, avocados are high fiber, soluble fiber sources. And then here, Metamucil is a brand name, but what's in the Metamucil is psyllium husk. So you don't have to buy the Metamucil, but that one's just so readily available that you can buy. But you can also get the powder piece of it online. So if you decide to go that route because you're not getting enough fiber, start slow, because it's going to be uncomfortable to start quickly. And you also are going to want to increase your fluids if you start that, because if you don't, you'll actually have, constipation, which could lead to, a blockage. So be very mindful with that. And you might want to get some tips from me before you actually start doing that. And then the other piece of this is following the flexible rule of threes, which is it's just an easy way to think of it. It gives you some structure, but it's flexible, where you are going to try to eat 3 meals a day, and those meals should have at least 3 of the food groups, and then checking in with yourself every 3 hours to see where your hunger is, because when you're really busy, your hunger cues kind of go away. And if you are constantly kind of not eating, even if your body needs fuel, those hunger cues get really, really dim and you can't hear them. So here's a slide on increasing your plant-based proteins. I listed a bunch of them here. I'm not going to go through all of them with you, but just kind of lead you through this. Is I listed out the protein and then also some ideas. Like, for example, lentils, which are high in protein and fiber, can be good in soups and stews, also salads. Looking through here, edamame is a soybean, actually. It's a young soybean, and they're very high in protein and fiber. So just looking through here to see if there's anything that you might want to try. You don't have to try all of the things, but just looking to see if anything interests you here to help increase your plant-based proteins, to see if that would be helpful. And now I wanted to specifically talk with you about the differences in grains. All grains are not created equal. We have our nutrient-dense grains, which you may have heard called complex carbohydrates. And we also have our less nutrient-dense ones called our simple carbohydrates. And so the goal is to eat more of these and less of these. So the less nutrient-dense ones doesn't mean that you can't ever have them again or that it's bad to eat them. It just means that they're not really offering you much other than a really low form of a carbohydrate. So those are sodas, juice, sweetened beverages, candy, sugar. And you've probably heard, consume honey because it's natural, it's healthier for you. It's still sugar. Your body will treat it exactly the same way as it treats regular white sugar. And so your body doesn't really know the difference. So don't consume honey, a lot of it, thinking that, it's better than sugar. It's still going to have an effect on your body. And then another big difference here are the refined grains. Anything where the grain is stripped of its fiber and its germ, it just has less nutrients. And that's, the white bread, the pasta, white rice, and pastries. Now, if you are a white rice lover, does that mean you can never have white rice again? Absolutely not. You just need to try to get in some of your fiber and whole grains somewhere else, because the recommendation is that half of your grains come from whole grains. So you can still have white rice. But also, if in your mind, if you're like, I like brown rice, or I like quinoa, which isn't actually rice, but sometimes people substitute quinoa. I like that just as well. Well, if there's a tie between the two, choose the nutrient-dense one versus the less nutrient-dense. So now, marketing is tricky, so you really have to look at the labels and you have to look at the ingredients, because if you want a whole grain bread, you can't just look at it and say, because it's brown, it's whole grain. You have to look at the ingredient list, and the first ingredient should say whole grain. If it says enriched or wheat, that means it's not whole grain. So that's just a little tip there. Whole grains are oats, bran cereals, bread, pastas, and the brown rice, and then quinoa. Quinoa is also a great source of protein as well, and fiber. So legumes, again, are on this list, and then your starchy vegetables are going to be more nutrient dense than some of these other things, but they are going to be higher in carbohydrates. So if you also struggle with your glucose levels, we would need to talk about that too. But if you don't, totally fine. Sweet and white potatoes, peas, and corn. And so I want you to also think of your food choices as holistically, because sometimes what happens with people when they hear they need to make some changes, they go all out. They don't eat anything except all of the nutrient-dense things. They're working out every single day for hours, and they burn themselves out. So my recommendation is to start slow. Try a couple things, make it a habit, and then add in more. So if we're looking specifically at food, it's not just about the nutrients, it's also about taste. It has to taste good, or you're not going to keep coming back to it. But there needs to be a balance. You can't just focus on nutrients. You can't just focus on taste, because that's too rigid. So the nutrient piece, again, just to summarize, is to increase your fiber, decrease saturated fats and replace with unsaturated fats. And if you can't remember what that is, scroll back to the slides and look. And then the flexible rule of threes is where you're looking at the minimum 3 meals a day. You can also have snacks. And then also at least 3 of the food groups. You can always have more. Checking in with yourself every 3 hours, evaluating your hunger and fullness cues. And then also something to think about is interoceptive awareness, and that is your hunger and fullness cues. And also part of that is how that food makes you feel. Does it give you food satisfaction? Do you kind of not really think it tastes very good? Does it make you feel ill? So all of this goes into our choosing of food too. And then the last piece of that, when you're thinking of food holistically, what do you have access to? Do you have enough money to buy all the foods that you want to nourish your body? And if you don't, what do you do? So I want to let you know that we do have a food pantry on campus. It's called Shop. And right now, they are open Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And so you can go to the ISU website and look for their specific hours, because they do change during break and during the summer. And then also there are other resources in the community too to help you make ends meet as well. Okay, so here are your handouts for today to learn more information. And so the Gentle Nutrition handout, when you click on this link here, is just going to bring this handout up right here. And so we covered all of this today. And so this is just a one-pager to help, give a summary.